and Southgate off to the left, and the city in the background. And I think it's quintessential Melbourne, and it's been very kind to my office, as I say. I think we've done something like at least 20 projects along this river frontage. And Federation Square itself has been very good to us. Today we're talking about a project right in the heart of Federation Square, and it's called Chocolate Buddha. It's a Japanese dining house. And so we look at Federation Square from above, and we've been lucky enough to do the hotel, which is the bottom left-hand side of your screen. We did the 3 levels of that building. We've done the cloud canopy, which is a structure, freestanding structure in the top end of the screen, the square. You can just see it like a honeycomb. I've done the 2 hospitality businesses adjacent to that, and then Chocolate Buddha, which is the red piece on the plan. Chocolate Buddha is a Japanese dining hall. We in fact designed that this tenancy first 18 years ago. We're very lucky to have the client come back to us 18 years later and ask us to redesign and refresh this particular tenancy. And being given that opportunity, we were able to look at exactly what makes this tenancy and how we could reinvent it. So part of the rationale was to make sure every seat in this tenancy got a great view of the square across the plaza. We're to provide greater seating types for different groups of people, and so you can have different experiences within this space, and also cater for a loyal patron demographic that has now more generous circulation spaces for true universal access throughout the venue. So a lovely agenda for us, and it came at a time. We started this project 4 years ago, and 3 years ago our initial designs were all thrown upside down because of the debacle around the introduction of Apple into the Yarra building, which is the building to the south of this aerial shot, which was to become an Apple store, and the Newry Heritage Trust was being asked to move out of this building, make way for a new building. So that set about a chain of events which resulted in our tenancy changing dramatically, and so a big chunk, that green area at the bottom of the plan, was bitten out of our footprint, and a new stair was inserted to the right. You can see there's a patch there with a hatched green area, which is a piece taken out of my client's tenancy space to make way for the Newry Heritage Trust to be relocated above our tenancy, and that threw all our design thinking out the window. We had to replan this space from ground up and move the shop front out into that green zone to keep a viable amount of space available for this Japanese dining hall. So if we just have a look at what it was like perhaps 13 years ago. Let's just see if the forward slide's not working. Hang on, let's just go here. Bear with me. There we go. So this is Chocolate Buddha as it was 18 years ago. And the little stools or communal tables were around bamboo benches, a beautiful big double height space with my client's collection of chocolate Buddhas, hence the name of the venue. And we're asked to gut this completely and start again because of the new footprint and because it was getting tired in any event. So that set about an incredible opportunity for us to reinvent what this place was and is. So here we have the degree of savagery that happens with these renovations, and basically completely gutted back to the bare shell. Floorboards, ceilings, all the services, air conditioning, wiring, plumbing, and new shop front, which is clearer in this next shot, moving out about 2 metres. So you can see the old shop front in the foreground, and a new shop front on the outside of that. And so the space expanded out, and we gutted the space in readiness for a reinvention. And it's quite a violent act. The tenancy, particularly hospitality renewals, these have a life, and I like to say with architecture and I guess also with interior design that nothing lasts forever, and it's hard as an architect to accept that because you put so much energy and love and passion and time into creating these spaces, and then to see them in your lifetime demolished and having to be rebuilt is kind of debilitating, I guess. Yes, it provides work for everyone, but the built-in obsolescence of these venues is very disheartening. Unfortunately, in this job, the pipework was rusting. We had water leaks coming out of through the floor. The kitchen was worn out, and so that combined with our tenancy having to be reconfigured by Fitzroy resulted in the whole thing being demolished. But that gives a chance for new life, and hopefully this next tenancy will last another 18 years, which is not bad in this industry. So just moving on to the next image. It's a bit slow. Don't know why it's not moving on. There you go. So, you know, what we're interested in is taking on being a Japanese dining hall, some of the Japanese traditions. And here we have the Norin screen on the left, the use of fine timber work on the right, from Kingei Kuma, very famous Japanese architect, and the idea of jointing, the idea of fine, considered use of materials, traditional natural materials. And so this became kind of an inspirational idea about the way we go about reinventing what this place was. And a lot of the inspiration came from this image, which is Ishiro Taniguchi's 1962 Akura Hotel. Now demolished, in fact, demolished about 4 years ago, now gone, after an extensive renovation. But what we took out of this was the idea of a new spatial order, an idea of a space that can be modulated, very similar to the tenancy that we're presented with, the lovely double height space. But the idea of some rational modular order that changes scale, but hangs on to and celebrates the volume. And so this became quite an inspirational project. Not to mention that James Bond's film, You Only Live Twice, was filmed at this hotel. There was something sweet about us getting another crack at doing this tenancy for the same client, and then knowing this hotel had been celebrated in a number of ways, particularly You Only Live Twice. So there's a degree of sweet poetry in about that. So what do we take from this kind of inspiration in these materials? So we just go to the plan. Most architects start with a kind of a rational plan that really summarises the functional brief from our client. And so here we have the necessary components to make a hospitality venue work. And what's interesting is that the right-hand side of the screen, the public don't get to see. It's kind of the back of house engine room, but a lot of cost, a lot of energy goes into making this back of house. So kitchen, washing areas, storage areas, cool rooms, keg rooms, all the air conditioning requirements, splintering, power boards. I would say over half the cost of the fit out of these places goes to spaces no one ever sees. We sought to create a seating order, which gives variety, and also gives most patrons a view out to Federation Square itself, out to the plaza. So this new layout that we came up with has a sushi train running right through the centre, where food comes out on that looks like a jetty coming out from the kitchen. So that was a new introduction to this particular offer, and our client had the idea of making an express train as well as a sushi train. And we'll see the express train in a moment. So a mezzanine level where we have a lot of support services, toilets, universal toilets, etc. So what we do in our office is we start to model what the potential of these spaces can be in a rendering program. And here we're testing out how the shop front and how tenancy relates back to Federation Square. This is one of a number of models we set up and studied and presented to the client as we went along. And there's variations to this. You can see the Norin screens, the red pattern screens, dipping and diving, and an idea about seating coming through the shop front, and then the fit out beyond and how it might reach out to the square. And we did various versions of this. Here's another version of the way those Norin screens might duck around. Here it's got a black and white patination and relate to Lab Architecture Studios facade treatment. They were the original designers of Fitzroy. Don Bates and Peter Davidson did a fantastic job, and we were trying to do some sort of recognition of their work in our humble little tenancy. And then the final design for this shop front has a far more pared back, a far more subtle treatment of the interior, but you can still see it's reaching out into the square, and then there's kind of an order in the shop front which starts to relate to the order of the tenancy inside, and then the final completion of that shop front treatment. Now, it's interesting that it's all hermetically sealed behind glass. Once the Apple fiasco fell in a large pile, a large heap, there became a lot of authorities very interested in what was going on there, and they became very conservative, and we're unable to open up that shop front and make this tenancy reach out to the square the way we think hospitality works so well in Melbourne. So it is a restaurant which is pretty well sealed from the square, and we think could have provided more life to the square had that whole Apple thing not happened. But certainly it's still a commanding space and contributes in a large part to Fitzroy. And so we just have to go through the next slide, which is a bit slow. If you could just bear with me. I think my images are very large, and they're slow to cycle around. Let's just see. Oh, here we go. So the interior treatment was the same, where we tested out various options. This is a very activated interior treatment, but you can see how important through the windows here, the large screen on the back of the pub and the outlook over Melbourne becomes. So all the tables are perpendicular to that view, so all the patrons get a view out through that. And then we tested out other treatments for the patination and materials in this. But from this, well, I'm just waiting for the next slide to come up. You can see the way the steel and the timber are all knitted together. The furniture also, the furniture, the timber, the steel, the fit out, all very closely toothed together in the manner of that ancient Japanese craft. Victoria, my slides are running very slow for some reason. I'm sorry about this, but there is more coming. More coming. Here's another iteration of the use of timber and the use of the Norrin screens and the way it relates to the square. And then the final iteration is the one we adopted, where we have a very pared back interior. The lighting treatment relates to the catenary lighting that exists in Federation Square. You can see it through the window there with the fine wires and downlights cans that hang from the square. We brought that idea into the tenancy and made the tenancy a lot lighter and ephemeral, I think, by just treating it in a light fashion. And there's the final shot of the final completed tenancy and the way it works back to the square. So just moving through the design of this space, we've have the idea of this new spatial order with structure hanging from above. And if you look back through the body of the space, there's this timber dripping from the ceiling, a new layer which makes a lower layer which makes the space intimate yet large, and intimacy created by not by division but by implication, I guess. And if we refer back to the early influence and interest we had in the Okura Hotel, I think you can kind of see the connection there that we're aiming for. And so what we also find in hospitality work is that it's more than just interior fit out. It requires so many elements to make a successful business. They're very complex businesses where the fit out has to nail the commercial direction of the client, but there's a whole lot of other elements. Acoustics are very important. You see in this previous slide, the ceilings are covered in compressed wood shavings in panels, and that lines a lot of the ceiling in this space. and we have more acoustic treatment to the right of this image. So that's very important. But also there's the idea of a graphic presentation, their identity. And the identity, we work very closely with specialists in this area. Here we have our specialist branding consultant looking at what makes Japanese history around dining work, and looking at some graphics and railway treatment, public space treatment, and then developing a kind of a language that suits our tenancy, our particular client, and that's developed through to a layer of icons, and then eventually applied to everything through the space. So the idea of an icon then becomes part of the texture and becomes part of the fabric of the tenancy. And so we took the idea of this and applied it on a number of elements, and became part of the staff presentation, and even through to the wayfinding. And here you can see at the top left the little icons for the public facilities on the light fittings carried through to other areas in the project, and back to the entry identification. And so it is about branding, it is about interior design, it is about, of course, the spaces, the intimate spaces created within. So the more interactive these spaces are, the better. And we really rinse and wring the life out of the ability to make these spaces really interactive. And so here we have a bar in a corner of a room that needed activation, very open, and where you can dine from and really take part in the preparation of the food and beverage. Also, here's another view of the modulation of the space as it goes back through to the kitchen in the distance beyond. All the materials very low on VOC, no volatile organic compounds, and all the materials we've used are all natural, raw steel, natural timber, concrete that's already there, or just cement sheet, just treated with a natural clear sealer. And of course, it's just looking at the next slide. We have the ability to sit in different configurations, either by yourself or in groups, in ones or twos, or in private booths, which is through past the bar there, past the woman sitting at the bar. There's some booth seating, which provides for different groups as they come and go. Waiting for the slides to load up. So here we have the an entrance to the outdoors, a new airlock entrance, and all the furniture, all the fit out, all made locally. Nothing imported on this project. So we designed all the furniture especially for this job, and it's really a celebration of Australian craft, steelwork. All purposely made, all the bar fitments and all the elements that make up the 3 dimensions of this project, all locally made. It's also about food. So that's the main, I guess you could say a third. I like to say food's a third, service is a third, and I like to think the third is the interior, and then I say 10% might be the acoustics. I'm not sure, but food's so important. So the celebration of this, and you can see the way it comes together with the graphic presentation in the interior. And the way we present the food is have the kitchen very open to the public space, so you can see what's going on behind the scenes. And then here we have the celebration of the sushi train, where we're able to sit around a large communal bench with an express train sitting on top. We wrote a program. Each seat gets a mini iPad, and you can order your food off that, and the food will come straight out on that top bench, directly out to the patron that's ordered that food. So it can be table service, or it can run out on a traditional sushi train, or come out on that upper track at speed and pull up in front of your station. So so just back to the interior here. There's a great modulation and bringing up the space down to a more intimate layer, but a lot of modulation in terms of the treatment, sewing together of steel elements, of acoustic treatments, of mirror, and of little finger tiles that come from Japan. We've got the tiles sourced from Japan. In fact, the tile supplier was the one that supplied Frank Lloyd Wright's Imperial Hotel, and they're still manufacturing tiles. So we're able to get those and sew those into the overall tenancy. There's the express train coming out of the kitchen from the top, and looking back. So it's about time. What I would like to say about Chocolate Buddha is that these are large team events. This started 4 years ago. It was almost a year and a half under construction. A lot of planning involved. Had to change its design all halfway through because of the Fitzroy fiasco. But we're really happy with this project. The client's really happy with it. What's lovely about it is we had a fantastic team working on it. I'd like to acknowledge my client, Angela Matthew-Darkis, for investing us with the responsibility to produce this work. Also, the Builder Leader Projects, who have done probably 20 projects or more with, who just understand the drawings we produce and understand the design intent and have great skill in bringing those to fruition. Also, the architects that worked here, Jesse Newstadt and Drew Carling, fellow director, who devoted themselves to this project for a year and a half. And finally, the photographer, Will Watt, who was able to put all the images you've seen today together for us. So thanks very much for watching Chocolate Buddha. And I guess, Victoria, if anyone's got any questions, very happy to answer them.
Thanks so much, Peter. That was great. I think, I suspect there'll probably be quite a few questions, but what we might do maybe is let's do the Newry Street presentation and we can have question time at the end that way and capture everything. How does that sound?
Sounds fine to me. I'll just have to log on to the other project.
Yeah. Maybe while that's opening, I suspect I've got one here. Oh no, there we go. Perfect. Yeah. All right, I'll hand it back over to you.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure who's turned off or who's still listening. It's very odd sitting here in my office. Usually more people around. Very quiet outside, and I've got no idea who's on the other side of that screen. But again, I'm really thrilled to share this house renovation with you. This Newry project is in North Fitzroy. And this was a renovation to an existing terrace house. And again, I'd like to take you through some of the design machinations, some of the alternative designs we looked at through to the construction process, what influenced us in the design process, and the completed project. So if I could just start perhaps by, isn't that a beautiful image on the front with the princess eucalypts showing against the 410 steel. This was the site with which we were asked to do a renovation to. It's a double block in North Fitzroy, and the little cottage on the left, it's in a heritage precinct, although the cottage itself no high heritage overlay on that, and they had a double block, and so in front of this hoop wire fence there was just a vacant land, so they had a double block. And then our clients lived there for a number of years before deciding to go ahead and renovate. What we took from this beautiful humble cottage, was the landscape at the front, which we thought was delightful, and even the idea of the cottage presenting as a cottage, and the fence remaining as it was, as it would have been, irrespective of what happened behind that. But you know, most architects, you're given a brief, and the world is your oyster, and for the client, the world is their oyster also until you get the designs costed, and you understand the planning totally. You go through an incredible honeymoon period. But there is a reckoning. And that's when you get the cost plan in, and when you realise what the implication of all the planning constraints are. So we started off knowing we had to keep the cottage. That was part of the planning overlay, but the rest of it had a very large brief from the client. So we started investigating projects which filled in the block. Here you can see an early design idea at the rear, going underground. Down below is the backyard goes under. Then there's a 1, 2, 3 levels. So it's 4-level development total, with a big blocky existing building to the east, and a humble little terrace to the right, to the west. So that was some early investigation work, and then we had another iteration of this where we had a swimming pool up on the upper level, and again a very large building, and then another iteration of this which is again very adventurous and over many levels. But we ended up taking a completely different route when we looked at and started to understand the context with which this building was going, and the lovely texture and heritage that North Fitzroy has. And from this aerial shot, our block's the coloured one, the double one, but you can see there's a number of, from the neighbours, number of courtyards, offset courtyards, and very like trains, cabooses lined up in a row. There's this strong patination of these pieces of land in North Fitzroy. And there's sort of delight in that, I think. And despite the large double-storey square building to the east, to the right-hand side of this image, the rest of the streetscape and the way that that worked, there was a certain rationale in that. So we did pursue that. We're lucky with this piece of land in that we had north orientation with the trees at the back, and that was a great bonus. And of course, the double width block. This house was for a health professional. One of the partners was a health professional and wanted to work from home. So the brief developed around an office at the front. There could be a bedroom, 2 other bedrooms, so 2 bedrooms by study, and then as you move through this fairly axial plan, we cut into the building itself at 2 courtyards that were offset, and then some service areas, and then through to a large living space at the rear and courtyard at the back. The plunge pool, the sauna, the environmental attitude we took to this project was very much a collaboration with our client who was interested in those issues. So the building that we ended up pursuing was completely different from the early iterations. And so from the facade, we have the original cottage, which is maintained with its brick chimney stack, which we have to keep, and then a very modest recessive addition to be its partner, to be its bookend. And you'll notice that despite it being recessive and humble, the addition, a gable roof, is a bit lower than the hipped roof of the old cottage, and that's because when we stand from the street, perspective plays a part, and the recessive roof that runs away from us in the old cottage will appear lower, and eventually when you see them in perspective, they do so. So again, we model this part of our charter is architects. We model these up in 3 dimensions, and so the pen and ink is gone. This is all computer generated, but what we find is that the SketchUp or 3-dimensional program becomes a big part of the way we test out our ideas and refine them. So just something, there must be a few people there perhaps because the slides are slow to load up. With me, there is more. There we go. So this kind of proves the gable versus hip height idea, and the idea that this addition is recessive and very modest compared to, or less decorative, I guess, compared to the old facade of the cottage, which we have to keep. What we've done is covered this building in the addition in corten steel, which is a rusty steel, which relates very much to some of the parts of the landscape in the front yard, and allows the building to disappear, if you like, and allows the old heritage cottage to come forward. The only hint that this is a new entrance is the idea that one of those panels opens and then leads through to quite a contemporary fit out inside. That went a bit fast, didn't it? Oh, I'll take the other way. There we go. Sorry, this jumped. There we go. So there to there to there. And so this is the power of our 3D computer drawings, which are then taken into another program called Revit, which is a drawing program, and then everything's detailed for the builder to build from, for those that are not familiar with computer technology. And so here we have another view of what the interior might be, taking up the double block, and then a view of the rear, which is a certainly more pared back version from those early designs we were testing out, quite a humble. But some asymmetry, sorry, coming into play here, where we're playing with the modulation of the roof lines and making the building more dynamic from inside and from outside. And here we have a computer drawing of what the final project might look like. So just to go through the construction, another violent act happening in the landscape, preparing for the new house. But you can see the degree with which the old cottage was left, and it's about 1 metre only. The rest of it is gone, completely gone. You would not know that from the street today. It looks like the old cottage is still there. Part of the planning was that we had to keep the chimney stack, which is just behind at the top of that gable. But during construction, it fell over. And we went to council, said, look, it's gone, it fell over. No, we had to put it back. So quite ridiculously, perhaps, it was put back in and I'll just go forward 2 slides, on a big metal spike. And there's a brick chimney just sitting up in the roof, which is, I struggle with it because the chimney is new. It's new brickwork with new mortar, and it hasn't got the patina of age associated with it. And it's a faux chimney, but I get the whole idea that it contributes to the streetscape and tells of a history and a past. But then the house during construction, we're able to see that front bit of facade with the chimney, if you look carefully, on its metal spike in the front entrance. And then the plan as it opens out with the roofing going on and the offset courtyards. Now, importantly, this gets north light, yes, but west light. The east light's blocked off by a 2-storey building, which might relate to other people that have site constraints. So we have opened up the western side of this facade, or this structure, which allows sunlight to penetrate into the bowels of these buildings. And that's one of the problems with this Victorian terrace type. They're long and thin, and there's very little sun and light penetration. So that idea of having offset courtyard is a big player in coming up with this design and coming up with something that will ventilate well and breathe well and let daylight in. So just to go forward, it's very slow, the internet, I'm sorry. Well, let's try to load up. Yes, the other thing is instructive about this aerial view is the way the rear elevation is cut away. There's an angle from the back facade, which is orientated away from the existing tree to get more that north light in and more northwest light in. So there's a subtle play on that double gable roof form at the rear. I'm still waiting for this to load up. I'm terribly sorry. Working forward. So during construction, large portal frame holding up this double width gable. It's heavily insulated, this building, and we were very keen on the idea of very much the patina of the suburb. That is the nature of North Fitzroy and the surrounding buildings. There's a wonderful decay going on, and so our acknowledgement of that is to use either core tin, which is a rusty steel, on the front, which is quite expensive. And on the back, we've used just normal steel, and we've let it rust. And you can see it's starting to take hold in this image. Steel frame windows, all locally made, and all double glazed, of course. An aerial view shows the lovely texture and patina of the neighbourhood. This is a shot of our completed roof with our photovoltaic cells nurtured in that and invisible in that hidden valley of the double gabled roof. The offset courtyard idea, the cutaway rear facade to let the light in, and the interior runs out into the backyard as a landscape element. We're able to see also the restored tin roof with its faux chimney at the front, and then coming down into the courtyards, which has got more of those silver princess trees that are in the front yard planted in the courtyards with native grass cover. And so the finished product, here we have the facade with the original fence, even the rubbish bins left out the front, the bird bath hanging from the tree, the silver princess hanging over the entrance. And I've been asked before, how did we get such a tough looking nuggety building into a Victorian streetscape? And I think the idea of having some careful thought around scale and modulation of the gable form, of it being recessed back from the original building, of leaving the old, a lot of the old elements on the facade, resonated with council and helped us get this through planning. So let's go through the building. The front door is in the distance, a long axial entrance. The whole building's lined out of birch ply, no plasterboard, no cornices, no skirtings. Concrete floor, polished concrete, in slab heating. But here we see this courtyard starting to play its part in animating this space. As we go in, there's the main bedroom on the left. Now the roof form was expressed internally. That is, there's very little packed down ceiling space, and we're able to play off that the zigzag roof form on the interior itself. So the main bedroom follows the roof line, where you can see to the left of this image. All the walls are either rendered concrete or this ply material. The ensuite opens to its own private courtyard. We use fluted glass in that, and for privacy from the living room, but this door folds completely back. One of the elements I loved that our client Sally wanted was the idea of being a health professional, wanted to be healthy in her lifestyle. So in the laundry, we located a very small sauna. And another device we employ here is washing machines that are up off the ground. And so that the washing machine is a simple little thing, but makes a big difference in life. It's about $4.50 off the ground, and it's kind of way more comfortable to use. So we're going to make our way through the rest of the house as soon as this next batch of slides loads up. So coming out of the laundry, past that first courtyard, and we're able to see the new chimney and the neighbour's chimney, which is really lovely from living space. You get a hint of the neighbours. And at the back, we come right through to this gable roof, which has been cut off on an angle, and the rusty steel. And what I love about this shot is you can see the neighbour's rusty roof playing a part in the language of our building. And I love the idea that this is a new building, but it's decaying very early on. Let's please hope it doesn't decay too much. That should be fine. And the living room having the advantage of light coming and ventilation coming through from both sides. Basically a free span space with the wonderful Philippe Cheminet's fireplace, which is able to spin around on an axis depending where you're sitting. We designed all the built-in seating. We advised through Pomp, one of our collaborators, all the furniture and artwork. So we're able to fully curate this project. The kitchen has the same rudimentary materials, raw steel, sewn in with concrete, birch ply, and concrete bench tops, all kind of very much part of the language of the architecture itself. So there's a synergy and all that. Just waiting for the next slide to load. It's very slow. It seems today that the images are loading up in batches, and I've got one or two at a time coming up. Here we go. So looking back, and we're able to see the way the kitchen becomes more like a piece of joinery rather than a kitchen. It's very much integrated into the architecture itself. There is reverse cycle air conditioning behind that slotted panel. Despite the environmental aspects of this design, the clients wanted the backup of having that in the project. Yeah, we have PAVs, we have over-insulated the building. All the glazing is double glazed with argon filled glass, which is the highest spec double glaze you can get. But again, there's no covering up in this project. So the craftsmanship, it says no architrave, no skirtings, no cornices, which allows the opportunity for lighting the project in different ways. So we do have express lighting, like task lighting over this kitchen bench. We also have embedded LEDs running around all the intersections of the walls and ceilings, which provides for variation at night time. Again, I'm just waiting for the next slide to come. So at night time, as I say, the lighting can take on different effects. So all the door handles and the light fittings down that corridor are all timber made by Interior, a group of architects in Tasmania that do timber work as well. So we're able to integrate local manufactured lights and door furniture into it. But the idea of the transparency of a long, thin floor plate is quite evident with these images. So double height, double gabled, expressed ceilings, giving an incredible sense of volume and space. The integration of a plunge pool was part of the brief, and so our client swims regularly, and there is a jet engine or jet water thruster that blows into this small plunge pool, allows our client to exercise regularly. So that was part of the brief. But the whole house opens up, the doors slide back, and other than the pool, which has got its own glass fence around, this whole dining living space opens to the backyard with a series of doors and then fly screens. These are a Cowdroy sliding screen, which was part of the brief. They wanted fly protection, so that's quite a discreet way of doing the fly screen. And so in the night, we have the ability to see right through from front to back, from the outside space right through the house. I'm just waiting for the next slide, I'm sorry. So I think the clients were very trusting in the design solutions we came up with. And at the end of the project, Sally and John were able to throw a party for all the tradespeople and all the professionals that worked on it. And they were absolutely thrilled that the project was able to meet all their requirements. And the house has a very natural feel about it, and we hope that that's married together with Sally's, who's our client, her professional direction, as clients do come to this house for her services. Now I'm just waiting again. I apologise for the slowness of these. But Victoria, I think that's nearly at the end anyway, but it's very slow. I'm hoping it's because there's still a few people are logged in. There we go. It might be two more slides. So an aerial shot, veggie garden outside the plunge pool, seating, garden retention becomes seating elements, the cutaway roof line, gable roof line, which opens up to let the northwest sun in, and a connection to and view over to the texture of the neighbourhood was all part of the agenda for us. Thanks very much, everyone. It's been a delight to do this for Open House Melbourne. I'm hoping that you're able to queue into other projects and this afternoon, because there's just such a rich offering available to 88 projects, I understand. And I hope that you've got something out of this humble little renovation in North Fitzroy. So thanks for listening.
Thanks so much, Peter. It would be great to have some questions now, so please feel free to turn your video on when you're ready to ask questions, and your microphone, of course, as well, so we can hear you. Is there any to get started? I've got one in the chat here, which is, what's the flooring and ceiling materials, insulation and heating?
Ask again, please.
What is the flooring and ceiling materials, or what are the
Floorings polished concrete. It's got a 70mm build-up with reticulated hot water through that build-up zone. So concrete slab, insulation, then 70mm screed with hydronic water running through the concrete itself. So important that you have it in any hydronic separated from the main concrete slab, so heat doesn't go back down into the ground. You're only warming the top 70mm, and then so that's just polished concrete throughout, other than the bedrooms, which is a pure wool carpet, Australian made carpet, and then the ceilings are all ply like the walls. It's all birch ply, the whole ceiling. The ceilings themselves are super insulated. You need, I think it's R3.8 in the ceilings, and we would have doubled that in the ceilings in this house. You saw the construction images in the walls also. It's a cheap way of providing a far more efficient structure. Insulation, bulk insulation is cheap. So I don't know why you'd only put the minimum insulation in. So we've really gone to town on the ceiling itself, on the insulation. But the great craft involved in making all those timber panels line up. So we had skilled tradesmen, there's carpenters and there's carpenters, and to be able to get each of those panels with a 2.5mm gap all lining up perfectly, cut at obscure angles, was an absolute treat to watch. And so we're lucky we had Frank builders build this. So to acknowledge Kim McLaren, who is the architect in charge, project architect on this job, and Shubnam, who worked with him, Frank Builders, who built this project, Will Watt, who is the photographer, and of course our great clients. So a belated thank you to those team of people that make these things happen.
Another one here about Chocolate Buddha, Peter. Can you tell us more about the acoustic considerations and responses?
Yeah, so acoustic considerations, hugely important. We do it in every job and put a lot of work and effort to make that happen. Acoustics were lost in the dark 90s, and we're very aware of the importance of that. So we used compressed timber fiberboard, very open-faced material, on the majority of the ceiling, and we carried it down the walls as well. So hugely important. And as I said, I reckon it, depending on your sensitivity, but it has a huge bearing on one's enjoyment of these hospitality places. So hugely important. Hard to make acoustic floors because the ability to keep them clean. And on the walls, there's always a lot of window and graphic treatments, so it's not always easy on the walls. The ceilings is an easy target to make because it's a broad area to make acoustics work. And there's various devices. In this case, we use this compressed fiberboard. It's a bit almost like wood shavings, just crushed and left natural. So the whole ceiling and part of the walls is treated in that material. Anything else, Victoria?
Hello?
I see Bernadette there.
Yes. Could I just ask you, what was the most challenging part of this project and the rough budget?
Sorry, ask again. What was the most challenging part?
Of the whole project.
Yep. I guess the most challenging part was really nailing the design. And we had great client, great builders. Planning wasn't that too hard. It was just nailing the design and getting it drawn up really well. We had a delightful client, which that makes a very trusting client group, which makes a huge difference. I'll just say the technical, like to make a building like that happen, takes incredible dedication over a long period of time with a number of architects. So every detail was drawn to a fine degree of accuracy. So, you know, for instance, the window frames, the door thresholds, what closes are used, you see how it's all nice and finely assembled. That's because all the drawings are dead accurate to the millimetre. So there's a raft of drawings and consultants' drawings as well, structural engineers, hydraulic engineers. So to get all that package of drawings up takes a lot of dedicated work. And I guess it's finding people to have that dedication and that real commitment to make. Now, we had great people working on this job in the office, but it takes an incredible amount of effort, I guess. And not, it's almost impossible to get this level of finish without skilled architects. You can't, if you go to a builder, they can't build that without the thought, pre-thought and careful specification of all the elements that make it go together. So I think that was probably the hardest part, making the budget thing, budget question. We had that costed twice in early design phase and then developed design phase. So we made sure it was on the money for our client, whether it was so it could stick to their budget. So that's a hugely important thing to do. And we do it on all projects at least once or twice to make sure when we finish all those drawings, it take 6 months to do, we don't end up with a building that's twice what the client wants to spend. So so the process is probably the hardest thing.
Yeah. How long did it take to actually construct it? Like from
about a year and a half.
Yeah. Oh wow, it's really beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Really beautiful.
Yeah, we like it because it presents humbly, but it's just nicely done. It's just nicely, the builder was fantastic. That's a big part of it, getting a builder that's simpatico with the direction. And we think it fits, you know, we think the end result, the design fits in North Fitzroy. It's part of the heritage, that the roof form and the idea of it being long and thin and it is rusty and it is decaying already. It's kind of part of what Fitzroy is, North Fitzroy. So we're happy with it. Yeah. And it looks like a home, like it looks very homely inside. Yeah. Well, my client lives and works from there. So the front room is her studio. So yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. It's been great. Cheers.
Peter, there's a couple of questions here actually about no blinds for the windows and what was the consideration around privacy? Yeah, good question. So very hard to make blinds into a gable form. So that was a discussion we had to have very early. The bedroom, which I could have mentioned earlier, has that big diagonal window that runs down from your direction, probably that way. And that does have a slot behind it. It goes up to the ceiling where a blind drops out of it. And it can actually be shut down. So the bedroom, the main bedroom, has that. The back room is private. We don't have overlooking concerns. You know, that was an early design decision that was agreed to, I guess. So yeah, I mean, it's got this wonderful double width block with their own landscaping, a little plunge pool. You know, the outlook is fantastic. So yeah, that's what was decided, I guess. So another one here about how long was the design process? Yeah, we find it's a bit longer than the build. It's probably a year and a half. Design, planning. So planning can take 6 months or more. So we had to get planning. We had to do all the design work, technical drawings, find a builder. You know, the finding a builder thing, and then coming up a price and locking them in takes a couple of months. Planning can take 6 months. The design documentation takes a year. So that's just what it takes to get a good result, to get a fully integrated, cohesive design where the builder knows what he's costing. So yeah, it takes about the same or a bit more than the actual build time. So this is about a 3 year, around about, I can't remember exactly, about a 3 year process to get it done. There's a couple of questions here too, Peter, and this might be our last one as well, because we're about to reach the end. But there's some questions about the guttering and what is it? A focus detailing air tightness to avoid leakage? Was there any focus on detailing for air tightness to avoid leakage?
Yes, absolutely. Air leakage is a big deal. So all the doors have gasket seals on them, and hard to get on these steel frame windows because they're so fine. You don't have broad sections to work with. So that was we detailed every door, every window, the door furniture, the tolerances between the steel, what gaskets and air seals were to be installed, all very carefully thought about. So yeah, I mean, that's air leakage is as important as insulation in many ways. And so, you know, the integration of the gutters and where the downpipes sit, they're invisible, but they're certainly there. So we have that all kind of sorted out and you know, installed in a discreet manner. No, that is important. You can probably see the seals on the edge of that last photograph. I'm not sure you can read that, but yeah, no, that's all part of the fine detailing. So when for instance, the windows are designed, they go to a builder, and then shop drawings are made, which is one-to-one section details of all the window door frames, and we get one-to-one or to scale, large-scale details of every window, every intersection, which we review before any of the manufacture starts. So those drawings are done by the manufacturer based on our design drawings. And so we get a chance of really cranking up the magnifying glass and looking right in on all those details. And we sign those off, and then they go into manufacturer. And then we go and check the manufacturer as it's been made and installed. So there's a lot of due diligence around all that.
Great. Well, thank you so much. That was fantastic. So thanks to everybody who came as well. And there will be a recording of this presentation as well. So if there was anything you wanted to come back and listen to again, you'll be able to find it up online next week. Thanks very much, Peter.
No problem. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Have a great day.